Hello. My name is Sellas Trae. In today's video I wish to make a brief resume of PvE in Pet Battle and how I perceive it. This video will not be about game design, artistic direction, or content. It will be a video about the repetitive schemes I encounter in PvE situation. First, you must see yourself in a PvE situation. Imagine that you are going to do Blackrock defs in family team, or you want to know by yourself if it's doable. How will you manage to do it? How will you organize it? What will be your first idea? Will you use your own experience in order to improve your team after being defeated? What will you do when your attempts only leads to a failure? How will you adapt your team? Will you focus on more counters or will you focus on more synergies? Here is a presentation of the 10 type of schemes I encounter. Scheme number 1. I see the 3 pets from my enemy, and I have a strong pet to oppose to each of them. I can easily find a synergy between the technique. I don't really have to plan how I will proceed. Once my team is ready, I just start the fight. I can focus on 2 things, how to burst my opponent as fast as possible, or how to counter its techniques. For example, if he uses Stampede, Sandstorm, or Stoneskin will give me an easy victory. If he uses techniques with huge cooldowns, I can just avoid them. I can manage to tempo my cooldowns as well. I will be victorious because of the simplicity of the fight. It can be done when my opponent is utterly predictable. I have all the tools I need, and I barely need to think about what I will do. If I want to burst my opponent, I use a team that win because it bursts the opponent so fast that he cannot give any answer. This type of team is also very interesting to use in PvP situation, if you want to farm the achievements. Scheme number 2. I will use at the beginning of the fight a pet that is very good in trading. The kind of pet that can do a lot of damage all by itself. For instance, the Fell-afflicted Skyfin. It can use wild magic to increase the damage taken from the enemy, then immolate him, then force the switch to do the same thing to another pet, leaving the opponent with 2 pets low life, at the cost of 1 of mine. As a second pet, I can choose a high-speed pet that allows me to finish these 2 pets quickly. I can finish the last one with 2 of my pets. To resume, I want here to manage a way to kill 2 pets by sacrificing only 1 of mine. A method very similar that can be done is the use of strong pets that seems to work all the time and to be powerful, whether they have some synergy between them, or not. It can be assimilated to a lack of original ideas to defeat an enemy, but if I only aim on the victory, and if I am lazy, for example, I just want to fight a random pet battler, then this method is fully indicated. Scheme number 3. Teams that are very strong most of the time. To be honest, for these teams, I use the PvP teams I have already tested and approved. This is one of the easiest ways to encounter a pet battler when you don't want to put an effort on the creation of your team. You don't have to challenge yourself all the time. If you takes no pleasure nor interest on a specific fight, be lazy. Create a team that you know will do the job, and that's over. Scheme number 4. The enemy has an uncommon strength and I have to look for synergies or for combos. I must have say, in a lot of situation, these synergies have been used so many times that I don't even have to think about it anymore. The perfect example is my team in Undead, Unborn Valkyr, Blighted Squirrel, and Infested Bear Cub. This team works for like 90% of the PvE fights. Another possible team that I can rely on and that have a high chance of winning is an elemental team that was shared on the internet to beat one of the legendary pet of Argus. It is composed of Crazy Carrot, Ominous Flame, and Tiny Twister. I use Blistering Cold to make several effects of damage over time appear, then forbidding curse to slow and increase all damage taken by my enemy, then finally call lighting to double the effects of damage, and flyby to increase them. A same kind of team exists in humanoid. I use the team I created to defeat Terry, the 6th boss of Stratholm, and the same team works most of the time. If I fight only one pet, I can use BAAL plus 2 Tynafernal with a magic team to burst it. Others repetitive schemes can imply specific pets for each family. For example, Eula, by combining Celestial Blessing and Life Exchange, is so much useful that it's quite natural to select her in my team. Going straight to a team that can win, even without testing it or thinking about it, is quite normal. If the teams or the pets I use to employ fail, I don't worry. It gives me the experience I need to go further. And even furthermore eventually. Each time I fail, I look on my collection to find a useful technique or synergy. Paying attention about my opponent's dead times can be very lucrative. Each time he does something that doesn't have any effect the turn it is played, it gives me the opportunity to switch safely. Scheme number 5. I try to block my opponent in a loop, where my victory is almost assured. Specific synergies can give me the opportunity to infinite my opponent. Or at least to keep him in a loop where I kill its 2 other pet and then I kill its active pet. This method is not new. I used it to defeat Blingotron 3 years before, with a magic team. More recently, I used it against Tasha Riley, in Blackrock Deeps, to infinite her with a single lava crab. Even more recently, I blocked some Shadowlands pet battler to have an easy win in Elemental team. The key is to focus on what my opponent is doing. There exists 2 ways to do it. First, make sure that my opponent has an active pet that cannot kill mines, and I keep spamming the same techniques over and over. For example, 2 pets with sunlight and photosynthesis. Or, as I did against Zuna with a magic team, find a way to defeat her by healing all my team and dealing damage to all the opposite team. The infinization method can be very tricky, in the way that creating a loop and find a way to exploit it can be very easy or very hard. Remember that the key is to focus on what my opponent is doing. The infinization method is very important, because it gives a way to defeat opponents that are not supposed to be defeated. Especially when I have no tool to defeat one of its pet but I can strike him while he's not active. The first time I did was at my very beginning in pet battles. I intended to defeat the Fellsworn Sentry with less than 50 level 25 pets. I finished by use the grab from a Weebomination, then I strike the Sentry with a Celestial Dragon and made sure the first pet was kept alive. This method was especially useful against Tasha and Zuna in Blackrock Deeps. Scheme number 6. It appears that this specific enemy cannot be done normally. So I have to plan my actions, to take note of what will happen. My experience of the fight gives me the knowledge to divide the fight in several parts. If you want to do the same, you will have to handle and think of each part individually. Divide the fight depending on what you will plan, then you will think about how you do it. You will see the fight as you see a boss on a normal dungeon run. This kind of fight can be seen as difficult. The most important thing to keep in head is the tempo. Personally, I try to dance with my cooldown. I observe its dead times, the times where is preparing something. If it bombs me, I blind him. If he's faster than me, maybe can I try to find a pet that can increase its speed in order to break its defense or bleed him. The most difficult part is where the obvious only viable strategy in my head is to do something that cannot be really done in the family I am working with. The thing is, I am here to know if it's doable or not. No one will judge me, I will not compare me to anyone. Thus, I am free to do my best. In my view, this is part of the pleasure. Pet battle community is a niche, so no one cares about competition in pet battles. That's why no one will judge you if you fail, and that's why this is so pleasant to bounce back. Imagine if Batman's father was judging him each time Bruce falls. Whatever. When all my attempts fail, I try to visualize it differently. By writing down what ideas I had but failed, and by making a list of interesting ideas. Scheme number 7. When I face in-game an opponent and I suddenly lack ideas, I can choose to write what I have already tried to make things clearer, or I can try to theocraft. By writing the fight, I can see it differently. And maybe more efficiently. The main difference is that I will not rely on the impression I have in-game, but I will use the numbers of heals and damage I have acknowledged. I can use formulas in order to do the same as well. One of the most interesting part of the theocraft is that you don't have to manage a way to access to the fight. For example, I don't access to Malloy anymore, because I have already completed the fight once. Still I am able to write on a Microsoft Word what will I do if I want to encounter him. It gives me the tool to understand, with a different point of view, what is going on each turn. Nothing is perfect, and this method takes a lot of time. Moreover, you have to be very careful with the numbers whenever you use it. You will earn 2 nemesis, RNG-based techniques which will almost always lead to more than one scenario, and all the stuff that will increase or diminish the damage done or taken, because it will complicate the calculation of the remaining health points. Here is how I proceed. First, I take note of the enemy's team pets' names and stats. Then I mention their technique and their effect. Secondly, I note each pet or techniques I find interesting. Then, when an idea emerges, I try to simulate the fight, by making 3 columns, one for the number of turns, one for what I imagine doing, one for what will my opponent do, and the last where I note each health point of each pet, that have changed during this turn. It must be organized as a draft, which means I can visually arrange it in various ways. Which means, according to how I imagine doing this, and how I imagine the difficulty of the fight, or if I already have some ideas, I will arrange it in consequence. Then, I write my ideas until something relevant comes out. I want it to be viable, with the highest chances of winning possible. Once I found an idea that proved itself on the paper, I go back in game, I experience it, and I see if my idea fails once again or not. Then I go back to my normal life. Until one day, when a new idea comes out. Then I try it. And this time, if I win it, it's glorious. One last word about theocraft: you have to know the exact script of the techniques, or you will get a harsh surprise. Scheme number 8. The 8 method is a mix between theocrafting and in-game experience. I don't have an easy access to the fight in-game, and my ideas were good on the paper, but failed when I try it. But hey, if I manage to clean a way to the fight, now that I am here, I can try something else, just to find new ideas. This method was extremely important for Blackrock Deefs, because it was how I managed to fight a team for the most difficult battles I encountered. Each time I fail, I am progressing because I acknowledge what is not possible. Should it be by mistake, by random event, or by a lot of search, something will always happen during my tries. It can be an evolution of a team that might worked but didn't, it can be a mix between 2 ideas. It can be a pattern that I realized with another family team but failed with the one I am working on, then I realize what else could I do, that should give me better result. I aim for a viable team, but if I lack ideas, I focus on the tries, not on the result. Is this working? Oh, it is. To which point of the fight? Oh, good. Now let's try to find another pet that can handle a specific role for this. I must admit, that a lot of time, it all about survival and dancing with the cooldowns. Scheme number 9. The casino life. The one to avoid. The fight is doable, yes, but the enemy is using a lot of RNG and has overpowering stats. This is the perfect example on what is going on with Silverton. I cannot decently hope for a solution that works for most of the families. I cannot defeat him with the AoE team, I can slow him with only with high difficulty, I cannot hope to defeat him without having to fight against both its stats and the RNG. The best thing to do in here is to block him in a look, where I can infinite him. On the other hand, if I have 25% chance to be stunned and 50% chance to have your turn interrupted, whatever I will do, I will face an RNG situation. So even if I want my technique, that have 50% chances to miss, to hit thrice, my current 12.5% chance of winning is not that much different than the chance of winning I would have if I try to play normally. I see this situation as a hit or miss situation. At least, all the thing you have to lose is your time and a bandage, so, in a way, this is an educative way to teach you that you shouldn't spend your money at Las Vegas. Because whatever you do, the result is totally random. And you will encounter a lot of negative variance. Which means that RNG is working against you. Scheme number 10. The BAAL situation. Very specific to him. The battle is obviously not possible with some family team. But before putting a fight in this category, I try what I can. Very surprisingly, BAAL is the very only boss that cannot be encountered in family team. To resume. First you will seek how to counteract and how to synergize, and the more efficient way to use the synergies for one fight, then you want to dance with cooldowns. Depending on the results, you are going to define when do you rather aim for survival, damage, or maybe you want to build a setup. You are going to alter the uses of the same techniques, to look at which ideas allowed you to go a little bit further than before, to innovate and then to recycle. You progress empirically, or according to your instinctive understanding on what is happening. 1, 2 and 3, no real research. 4. I use teams that have proved themselves. 5. Blocking opponent in a loop. 6. Observe its dead times, how to counter, what will he do, use obvious synergies. 7. Theocraft, a long work. 8. Theocraft plus experience in game. 9. Casino life. 10. BAAL. A last word to finish this video. I like the idea that there are several different game plans and that it's up to you to choose which one you're going to use, and how you can adapt it as needed. I like that you can make a team theme, although its effectiveness depends on the balance of the game. I find it much more efficient to use the classical methods of memorization, understand, memorize, anchor, motivate, and to progress gradually by experimenting oneself, learning what to pay attention to, that to attach oneself to guides that are sometimes not sure values. I can assure you will far more serene and master more the thing if you search by your own. I can assure you that in the long run, you will be much more serene in what you do if you have experienced without any help and understood it. As usual, thank you for your attention. I wish you a nice day.